feature presentation.
Welcome to the 8th best movie podcast in Canada. Yes, it's the Untitled Movie Podcast, episode 130. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin. Oh, are you a Coke Zero boy? Or what do you got?
No, this is just a regular Coke because my delivery order was screwed up. It was originally a
happens
diet.
every time, dude.
Yeah.
Every time. We do Walmart,
Welcome to Walmart.
grocery orders a lot, and it fucks up at least a quarter of the order every
Yeah.
time. Like even the approved substitutions, or you will get like random things that I didn't order. One time they gave us like 20 packets of ramen, didn't order a single packet of ramen. I just got like a bucket of ramen.
What flavor? Or was it like assorted?
It was like Shin ramen, which is good ramen for instant ramen, but we got like 100 packs of ramen in our thing now, and I don't have it that often because it's just like it's good. It's just like it will literally just give you a heart attack with how much sodium is in it. Not that being said, I ate a hamburger and have mustard all over my shirt today, so that's how my day's going. How are you?
I'm good, Matt. It's been a busy day for us. We'll talk more about the films individually, but we saw our first two in-person pre-TIFF press screenings today with Holy Spider and Triangle of Sadness. Even I can't talk. So we will get into deeper discussions on both films individually, and they will be movies where we will have a video component where we're actually talking and you can see us. We should probably talk about that now then, since it was brought up, but also you brought it up on Twitter and the social medias, and it's just easier to probably maneuver overall.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good segue. Yeah, we started screening TIFF movies, everyone. Eric's watched 3, I've watched 2, I might watch my third tonight. We'll have reviews of those either dropping. We're holding a lot of stuff because PR people are asking until they premiere at the festival or close to when they premiere. So stay tuned for all that. It'll be a mix of stuff. So anything Eric and I pre-screen over the next week or so, we will pre-record before the festival, and you'll have both in your normal audio version on podcast services, your normal video version on YouTube. And then that's where things kind of get a little weird. So if you guys have been long time listeners, or
130 episodes, baby.
If you're a viewer, God, we have like we have more than 400 reviews too. If you listened for a long time, when we did TIFF back when we first started the podcast, we did audio only at that time. We didn't have a YouTube channel. So we kind of did a run and gun style of recording reviews on our iPhones, where Eric and I would each just use our own phones. We would sync it up, and then we'd throw up the audio version. We're going to do that again this year. So even with the YouTube page and the video version of the podcast, it will just be way too hard for the amount of movies you and I see and how much we're just out throughout the whole day to actually do, like, come back, record. Eric's not even going to be going home. He's staying with his brother, so he can't record there.
Shout out to Kyle, the Nope
there's
episode.
There's many reasons why it's just a pain in the ass. So what we're going to do is just put up audio versions, except we'll still put it up on YouTube for people who do watch our reviews on YouTube. We do feel like during TIFF especially, we get a little bit more eyes on it. So we'll do video intros, and then we'll kind of just drop into an audio version of the podcast. Not ideal for YouTube. That might turn some people off, but I think it's a good compromise. Kind of is like, we're two guys, remember, like we don't have a whole team or anyone. It's just me and Eric. And I do a lot of the back end stuff, and I just can't reviewing movies, seeing movies, I'm going to try to do a lot of prep work in the next week or so to get everything ready. But this just made the most sense. We could have recorded video on the spot and things like that, but I feel like that just overcomplicates things, and I like the sound quality from our two phones, even with background noise and stuff. So I think that's the best case scenario.
Yeah, it adds a little flavor to the
The favor of the
festivities,
flavor.
if you will, which is a lot of fun. And we do appreciate people, like reaching out and volunteering to shoot video. We would never
Yeah,
want to do
appreciate you,
that.
Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew Feigl, who we really need to get on the show at some point soon.
Oh, I would
Um,
love for him to be a part of this more often. I'm like you, where I'm like, I can't offer anyone anything. Is
yeah,
like,
same.
so it's
And
like me and you
yeah,
share this, so we don't mind doing it.
yeah, and as much as we would love to pay people, we can't. So like having it be our responsibility is one thing, but asking somebody to do something for free or the experience is another. And it's just kind of
No.
like we appreciate people listening, we appreciate people volunteering. Andrew, if we run into you and we're reviewing a movie that you've seen and you want to join in on the conversation, you're more than welcome to.
If anyone sees us recording, jump on in. That happened so many times in 2019 when we did the festival, and some of them weren't even film people; they were just friends.
Yeah,
So it was funny. Like, and that stuff will all stay in there. It'll be pretty uncut, just because I don't have
uncut
time to kind
gems, uncut
of,
gems.
yeah. So I'm excited, man. It started today already, but today felt like a dip your toes in day. We did 2 films. I got home at 5, and I was still tired, but
Yeah, I
it's like,
feel a little rusty, like even sitting in the theater watching Triangle of Sadness, which was our second film. It's a longer movie, and not that Holy Spider is short, but you kind of feel it a little bit, and like even though we had nice seats and we were in a decent theater in terms of just
should have ordered one of those fish bowls.
God,
So
this the Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar, kind of like aquatic, treasure chest kind of bowl. Again, I apologize. I feel like after watching 2 movies back to back and then like racing home, I'm kind of in this daze. But yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, like it's good to at least watch one thing every day leading up to the festival. 2 or 3 would probably be more ideal, just because like you look at September the 8th, you can go to TIFF and you can look at our schedules, both Matt and I's, and it'll obviously change.
if you want to
Um,
stalk us during the festival,
but we're seeing at least what, like 4 or 5 movies
we
in
have a
that
lot of
first day. Yeah.
a lot of 4 movie days, which is just, we don't learn. Here's the thing, Eric, we never do. Like
People don't come here to learn.
each year we're like, maybe we cut it down that way, we don't destroy ourselves throughout those 10 days of being like, you know, maybe we see 2 or 3 movies a day and review stuff and have some time, maybe go to parties or something like that. Even that sounds exhausting, but like, I, I don't know. I obviously we love it. That's why we jam pack our schedules. So, yeah, I don't mind. We'll figure it out. We'll find time to record and we'll find time to post. Like if things are, I don't, the thing about the festival with multiple screenings and stuff like that is like, your review doesn't necessarily have to go up right away. Like it's still going to be relevant by the end of the festival.
And even afterwards, like a lot of these movies aren't coming out during the festival. There is a few that are, but for the most part, you can even bank some of this stuff. I mean, like when it comes to interviews specifically, like we are not an
Keep talking. I'm going to
interview.
turn on the microwave for Nevis. She's coming home in a couple of
All
seconds.
right. We're not an interview podcast per se, but we do the occasional interview. And if we can, find some time scheduling to do a couple, we will. And a lot of those are usually banked until the week of release for a film. So, keep that in mind as well. And we also have to sleep and eat at some point. We've got some really
Do
exciting.
we?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I
Yeah,
mean,
we got some cool stuff coming up. We got the Barbarian interview with
yes.
Zach Kreger. We might have a second one. Maybe that gets put into one bigger interview. There's a Last of Us Part 1 review, which is the remake to the original Last of Us game. That will be a review discussion and conversation about the HBO series. So Eric's going to join me for that. I will talk about my experience with The Last of Us Part 1. as well as my feelings of, everyone knows my feelings, but my feelings on that first game and how it's going to be adapted into that HBO show. And if you should play the remake before the series, that's going to be my main kind of statement of that review. So that'll be going up the 31st. If you're listening to this, it's probably already up, or it'll be up in the next couple hours. So keep an eye out for that.
We also
as
have
well.
Cobra Kai season 5, which we'll have a
Ooh.
review for that, which I think will be a lot of fun to talk about.
Woo!
And also, again, we'll
Not
have
to
a
break any
review.
embargoes, but I'm excited to talk about it.
We'll have the review for Barbarian as well. I still have yet to see it, and I will be catching up with that shortly. And as mentioned, we'll have a ton of pre-TIFF stuff already recorded, which will have, YouTube video content as well as the traditional audio options. So, there's a lot of stuff coming. We've been on and off a little bit throughout the summer, but I mean, the last month there hasn't been too much, with the exception of the Rehearsal, which just recently ended.
There's been nothing, dude.
And I gotta say though, that ending of the Rehearsal, oh boy, oh daddy,
Yeah,
quite literally.
I mean, we might as well start there. I don't want to give anything away. The beeping is the microwave being finished. I made a beautiful spaghetti and meatballs last night, and Nevis is having leftovers when she gets home. So you'll see her come in if you're watching the YouTube
Because when you're at
version.
Matt's, your family.
Yeah, the Rehearsal is wild. What a great TV show. What a great piece of art. What a maniac. And it's so good. I don't even want to talk about it too much, because if people haven't watched it, they should just go watch the Rehearsal.
Yeah, 6 episodes, cringe comedy, meta humor, part doc, part scripted. It's an art installation in its own right. It's hard to categorize, but it is such a fascinating series to dissect and discuss. And you're just thinking to yourself, how the hell did he pull this all off? Nathan Fielder,
And that they greenlit him for a second season.
which is amazing, which, considering what's going on right now at Warner Brothers and HBO Max and or Warner Brothers Discovery or whatever it's called now. It's just amazing that this got a season 2. I haven't watched the first 2 episodes yet, but Matt, have you at least seen the first and second episode of House of Dragon?
I have, yeah. So I mean, just sticking with the Rehearsal for a sec.
Wanted to go
Yeah,
off from one HBO show to another.
we will. And then we have lots to talk about today. FanExpo, a lot of Dragon Ball. So strap in. Yeah, the Rehearsal, I think, definitely stuck the landing. It is, if you guys want a deep conversation about it, go, not a deep, but a deeper conversation, go to last week's episode, which is episode 129. I'm pretty sure Errol Morris listened to that episode and wrote an article exactly what we were talking
He's a
about.
huge fan of this show. I think he's sorry, Alex Reno. Earl Morris is our new number 1.
I interviewed him once, I think, didn't I?
For the
in
Unknown Known?
2013? Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I think it is genius. And I think everything we said last week of whether it's real or fake or partly real, and which is, I think it's a little bit of everything, makes it just absolutely spectacular. Yeah, and then House of the Dragon, I have really been enjoying. I do think, like, I'm in a weird spot because I'm not like everyone else where I watched Game of Thrones for 7-8 years, however long it was on from the beginning, and had that heartbreak in in the last season especially, but maybe those last couple seasons, where my heartbreak came in a matter of moments, because I watched basically every season leading up to that final season and then watched that final season with everyone. So, I was left with a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth from that original Game of Thrones series. Still really enjoyed it overall. I wouldn't say like I was a huge Game of Thrones fan or anything after that, but I was excited to kind of check this out. I think some of the trailers sold me, and um, I've really enjoyed those first 2 episodes. So it takes place over 150 years before the events of the Mad King and Daenerys being born. So it's about the Targaryens mostly, but you do get kind of the other houses. It kind of deals with Westeros at that period of time when the Targaryens are kind of ruling, Westeros, and yeah, my favorite part of Game of Thrones was always the politics and the scheming and like everyone going behind each other's backs and trying to one up each other. And you definitely get a lot of that in the second half of the first episode, and a lot of the second episode. The beeping is going to keep going until Nevis comes home. So the meatballs are ready. I wish it just did that once. Yeah, man, I think Game of Thrones is back. This feels like good Game of Thrones more than the last season. And I feel like just bringing in some, fresh blood to kind of put their spin on it. I know it's still George R.R. Martin kind of is based on one of his books, and he's still very much involved. But bringing in new showrunners and a brand new cast, I think, injects some new life into it, even though it feels very familiar. And I've really liked, Patty Constantine and Matt Smith um and the entire cast is very, very good. There's Neva. She can have her meatballs now. um, um, yeah, I've really enjoyed those first couple episodes. The one thing I will say, the first episode, no theme. It just shows you a dragon logo and gets into it. A lot of dragons on this episode.
A lot of Dragon Ball Z.
And then the second episode, it kicks into the intro, and they use the same theme, like the exact same thing. They don't remix it. They don't slightly change it. It's just literally the Game of Thrones theme, and with a new kind of animated intro.
I guess it's like Star Wars, right? Where like you're
Yeah,
keeping a lot
sure.
of like
I'm
the
getting-
John
I get
Williams
that.
music kind of consistently the same and not really adding anything, even though like people like Michael Giacchino have contributed. But like
You
there are
still have
certain
the main theme. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's a totally fair point. But I feel like I get that in a movie. I guess they're episodes of the same series in
the same
Star
world.
Wars, right? But Rogue One doesn't have the same intro, or it does play during the credits, I guess, and things like that, and is the overall Star Wars theme. So I guess this is the overall Game of Thrones theme. I just expect, I guess, on a TV show to have a new intro and a new theme song. I guess not that intro doesn't completely rip. It's awesome. Like, that song is great. It's iconic. I get why you just do that. Like, but I feel like part of me was like, would have maybe rathered something, even if it sounded almost the same, and you just twisted it a little bit to make it its own thing. I would have been. That's a weird thing to be very focused on for a minute, but
Well, I mean,
I think the show itself, dude, I think you'll like it. If like, I know you really enjoyed most of the series, like I did.
Mhm.
And
Heartbroken because of all that time spent watching.
that last season's real bad.
Yeah.
But I've really enjoyed it, like the behind the scenes scheming and like that really battle for the throne kind of thing. And even though it's going to be very internal with the Targaryens, but you still get the other houses trying to get in there. Reese Fons as the Hand is great as well. Like, there's so many, like the cast. I'm thinking, who's the young woman who plays
Well, you
hold
mentioned
on.
Patty Constantine, who I
Yeah.
really do like as an actor, but every time I see a promotional still or a clip with him in it for the show, I think of the Californians from SNL just because of the
Sure.
blonde
The
hair and the look.
The
and-
wigs are bad. The
Yeah.
wigs are bad.
Matt Smith is getting a lot of buzz off the show.
He's
Olivia
great.
Cook.
He's very good as she's not in it yet. So basically the two, it's going to jump ahead in time at some point, or maybe it'll jump back and forth. But Millie Alcock plays a young Rhaenyra Targaryen, and then Emma Darcy is going to play the older version, and then Emily Carey is playing a young Alicent Hightower, and then Olivia Cook will play the older Alicent Hightower. So the older versions haven't come in yet, but the two younger actresses are just absolutely crushing it. Yeah, Matt Smith, very good at just playing like a sleazeball kind of asshole.
Less
And
dancing though than in Morbius, right?
yeah, less dancing, but he's been great, and I love that battle between these two brothers that they're kind of setting up. And yeah, man, I'm very intrigued. I'm kind of all in.
Yeah, going back to the intro though, just for a second, I think I understand your criticism because, like, again, You
I think
think
in
that like
TV, if you have a spin-off, it's not the same theme, right? Like
no, no.
if Joey had the Friends theme or fucking
It would have lasted more than a season.
I don't know. Like that's I guess I just expect it in television if you're doing a spin-off or a sequel series or something like that, that it would be like I know it's about the same houses and things like that. It's the same, it's still Westeros. It's like it's still within the same timeline. So it's like the Star Wars prequels using the Star Wars theme. I totally think you made a great point there, but
Right. Well, even the other point I wanted to quickly make, like, I mean, although this is a show that I'm sure had a lot of pre-production time and figuring things out in terms of, the score and themes and just putting in the work, but I also am not against a show figuring out what it is as it goes along, even within the continuity of an already established world. So, like, I think of like again, it's not a prequel or anything, but you look at the first couple of Bond movies, they didn't have the opening title credit sequences. Doctor No and From Russia with
yeah.
Love didn't have the iconic, song and sort of vignettes that appear on screen. That wasn't until Goldfinger. So like a lot of people forget that sometimes things take time to kind of find their footing, even if it's something that is within an established environment already. Like even just like talking about like a podcast, even like when you go back to listen to a first episode of a show you love, it's not necessarily completely intact or what it's become. It's over time it kind of
Oh, sure.
morphs
We did a
into that
brand
thing.
change. We did the whole like our. I look at our original art and I'm like, man, I was a lazy bastard. I'm like, those are ugly.
Those are still better than a lot, though. I still
I
think
know, I
like
know.
I like understand like new technology. You also become more skilled as you just kind of like play around with things. But yeah, like when you go back and look at how things begin and where they end, especially with
Totally.
TV shows, like it's always. I think it was either you or Nevis that mentioned it when you guys were rewatching Lost. That there's a lot of characters that you're so familiar with that don't show up until like season 3 or 4, that kind of feel like, oh, something's missing from those seasons that you're so used to by the time you get to the end
Yeah,
of the
people
series.
who become main players, but they weren't there at the beginning and things like that. Yeah. No, I don't know if that's the case for House of the Dragon because it does have that established universe that it's kind of building. And I think Better Call Saul did a good job with that too, of like kind of what you're saying, but in an established universe of still figuring it out as they went, but then still really making it fit and build on that original show. So I'm hoping House of the Dragon does the same. I don't necessarily need everything to like tie to the events of the original Game of Thrones series. Like I'm assuming this will go up until the moment of the Targaryens kind of fall and things like that. Like that's not a spoiler. We know how Game of Thrones starts, but Daenerys is the last of her basically of her name. And so I think people who kind of shit on prequels, I feel like yeah, it's just cuz you've seen a lot of bad lazy prequels is like the ones that literally have to just spell out things that were referenced in the original or things like that. But like I feel like the best prequels take that original and make that thing even better because they show something that a detail that adds to something you knew about or something like that. So I don't know. I'm pumped for House of the Dragon. I thought there's some crab people in the second episode. I'm like, who are
Oh, that
these
was a South
bastards?
Park reference. Okay, like that. I was
Yeah.
wondering why you posted that. So
Yeah, I don't know if he's a crab person, and that's not a spoiler either because it's out of context. I don't even know what the hell these things are. But some crabs were eating some people, and then there's some dude that looked like a crab people. So I'm like, all right, cool.
you're in.
Um,
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention with the prequel thing, I mean, obviously, like the Star Wars prequels specifically, I think that's kind of synonymous with a lot of fandom in terms of disappointment and interest and sort of like the blueprint of what not to do when making prequels. But the thing I keep thinking about when you do a prequel series that Jay Cheel brought up in Film Junk that was really spot on is that you are somewhat tied to the continuity of the films that will be coming. So when
Mhm.
you're in a situation that's life or death, and one of the characters should kill the other one, and leaves them behind. I'm being cryptic on what I'm talking about specifically, because it's for the good of the rest of the world. You're tied to the continuity of, well, this character has to remain, right? So
Yeah.
it's harder to
But the
kind of.
best versions get around that, right?
Yeah,
And
but
they
it
like
but Obi-Wan
it's
Kenobi,
hard, yeah.
spoiler, that's the show I was referencing, where like the whole, like the fight between Obi-Wan and Vader, it's like Obi-Wan realizes that Anakin, has having become Vader, is a threat to the universe, and it's like, well, you should have stopped him then and there, and
I
it's like
do, but there's a lot of history there. Like, I get why if you became evil all of a sudden, dude, I couldn't just necessarily throw away. I get it, but like, say if I see your half fucking, you somehow wear a mask now, and I see half your Eric face and half your
God,
Darth Martian face, and then like I'm like, I don't know if I can kill you in that
I
moment.
would.
You're my brother, Eric.
Matt, please finish me off, I beg of
I
you.
know you would want that,
um
but
but it's
I
just the
get it.
continuity, like, yeah, like.
Again, Better Call Saul does a great job at still feeling like there were times where I'm like, I know these characters survive, or at least some of them do, but they made me feel tension in that scene. Or it's not necessarily the character that I know survived that I'm afraid for. It's the new characters that they introduce. And like, that's the kind of, um, you know, you don't want that suspension of disbelief to kind of get too far. It's like we talked about it. You'll see in the Barbarian interview of like you kind of have to control, you need your characters to do one thing but you still want it to feel believable.
And you
And I
got to
feel
earn it.
like,
You
and you
got to
do have
earn
to
it.
earn it, and a lot of times things don't, and then that's why they kind of crumble. So far I think it's a far enough away in House of the Dragon being 100+ years, even though in these fantasy shows it's like I don't know how long people live in this universe. Like I don't know, like is this character going to show up because humans in Westeros live 150 years? Like, I don't know. I
Good
have no
medical
idea.
plans, even though
I
everybody
have
gets
no
killed off.
idea. Yeah, I know, but
Well, you
no one
mentioned
will.
Better Call Saul, and that series also just wrapped. And how did you feel
Hmm.
about that season finale?
I thought it was great, dude. Like, I think it is again, one of the most perfect prequel things I've ever seen. And I think they did a great job of being both pre Breaking Bad, during Breaking Bad, and post Breaking Bad, that just made such a good use of the premise. And like, it's like I said, I feel like a lot of the times people can get hung up on a prequel series or show being like, know how the characters end up, so who cares? And it's like, well, there's a good use of it is like, well, you don't know how he ends up, so we're going to put a little bit of a Breaking Bad sequel in here, but we're only going to tell you about 10 minutes per season until the last 3 episodes, and then we're going to give you that. And then like the lead up of like, this guy becomes Saul Goodman, and then you're like, do we really care how he becomes that? But the show did such a good job of making him such a tragic, kind of sad character that like everything Jimmy McGill, the show is mostly Jimmy McGill leading up to that. And then he's really not Saul Goodman for that much of the show. Um, and they did such a wonderful job to recontextualize that character in Breaking Bad. Like now, if I went back and watched Breaking Bad again, I would view the Saul Goodman character completely differently because of seeing Better Call Saul. And I think when they made Breaking Bad, that's obviously none of this stuff was, maybe a little bit of his backstory was known just for character reasons, for, you know, just even Bob Odenkirk playing him and things like that. But like, that can go of two ways because it can feel like a retcon because you're like, oh, okay, well, that's obviously not what you were thinking when he did that thing in Breaking Bad. But then you wrote this thing that kind of changes that. And that is a retcon. But I feel like that can, unless you're just changing something for the sake of changing something, like it needs to add to the character. And I feel like the best stuff does recontextualize that original thing. And I think Better Call Saul does that so wonderfully, and then gives you closure to a lot of stuff from Breaking Bad, like because it does take place now that we've seen how Jesse ends up, we know how Walt ends up at the end of the series. We got the Jesse sequel movie, and now we know how Saul ends up. And I just feel like, man, there were times where that show would be like grippingly intense, and even though you kind of know where that character ended up, and I feel like those moments were what made you go, oh shit, I'm gonna view that moment in this series differently. And like, it's not really a spoiler, but basically everything in that series um makes you go, oh, this is why he was Saul Goodman. And it's more sad than he was this kind of just ridiculous lawyer. Like, he was kind of, you know, very sad deep down, and he used this to kind of just deal with all of his pain. And then just kind of dove deep into that because of all the things that he had to deal with in Better Call Saul. So I don't even think you need to watch Breaking Bad to enjoy it. I feel like you'd get way more out of it, and I feel like the last few episodes do really deal with, post Breaking Bad um consequences for the characters. But I think it was a good ending for that character. All three of those characters I mentioned had different endings, and I think they were all right for those characters. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Really, really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Vince Gilligan. He seems like an interesting enough guy, and having talked in early episodes of this show, and I think even on movie night, like, about his work on the X-Files, like, it's just interesting to see his progression, because again, that's where he first worked with Bryan Cranston on
Yep.
that episode Drive. So
He's
yeah,
supposed to be doing a sci-fi show next, right? That was
which
more
will be
like the
interesting.
Twilight Zone or something. Yeah.
Yeah, just to see where he goes after all of that. Like, I'm sure, like, like him and Bill Hader are two guys that are really in demand, like, after Barry's
Barry
finished.
reminds me a lot of Breaking Bad, but even
Yeah,
better, I think.
yeah, the way that Barry
um
kind of like starts off as one thing, and then it has this permutation kind of thing, and it kind of morphs into something completely
Morph.
morph into something completely different, and then it takes you by surprise with how you know much of an influence it has in sort of classic cinema and international cinema, and it's pulling from those resources to make something that is truly, it doesn't feel like it's set in the US, but it has such an international kind of feel, and just the filmmaking in general is such on a high par with anything that you would see theatrically, that it is competing really with a lot of the stuff that you've seen in, whether it be the best of the art house world or the best of commercial cinema. So yeah, it will be interesting to see, like, I think we mentioned, like, Bill Hader, what would he be doing, like, as a director for a feature, like, what would that look like?
I hope
And
we do see that, and I think we will after he's kind of done with Barry, because like I don't know Barry will go on much longer, right? He only said it's like 4 or 5 seasons, maybe, but
yeah, and I mean, they're already starting to cast season 4. Patrick Fleischer, who is a David Lynch regular, was just cast in a
we saw that
recurring
at
role.
Mall.
Yep, awesome in Mulholland Drive and Twin Peaks: The Return, Under the Silver Lake. Always a guy that you kind of like seeing pop up. So yeah, it's like it is an interesting time for television in general. I mean, like, I think we're in the post golden age of television, and now we're just in an age where television, there is a standard in which a lot of TV, whether it be oversaturated or not, is something to really consider on that level of being, is it just television, or is it something more?
Or is
Is
it
it
HBO?
yeah, is it just HBO, which HBO has a lot of problems going on right now in terms of their business end of things, but it does seem like they are still at least getting the Rehearsal or Barry out there, and for shows
And
like
Last of Us
in Last of Us soon, which
soon.
we will talk a little bit more about in the review that you will be sharing. So yeah, there's always that little sliver of hope that something kind of gets through, that isn't necessarily just House of the Dragon. I'm excited to see it. Like, I'm sure it's good,
But
and
you
like,
pretty much know what that is. Like,
yeah, like when something
yeah,
like The Rehearsal gets made, it's like, how did Nathan Fielder con his way into getting
I
the
know.
executives to do
It's the
more
best.
than one season? And you're lucky to get what you get. You take what you can and run with it. But yeah, so like for those things in Barry as well, like, it's just kind of like amazing that these shows, and even Better Call Saul, like what it took away from Breaking Bad and making something else. I didn't watch any of the show, but I did see a clip online that involved the Breaking Bad component that everybody was waiting for. And what it did in that moment, I was like, oh, that actually is a very clever way of kind of reintroducing you into that timeline and doing something that's not just gimmick casting or kind of like just going back
Which
to the
part was it?
well.
Was it the conversation between two
It was in the
characters, or
trailer. It was in
oh,
like
in the trailer? Okay,
yeah,
because
the
there's a
way the
couple moments
perspective
like,
switches, the
yeah,
like that was a smart way of doing that, where it's like the same scene but done from a different perspective. Like I thought that was
yeah,
like, okay, like that is something I would have never thought of to do. Like
that was very cool. There's
yeah,
another moment where a Better Call Saul specific character has a conversation with one of the main characters of Breaking Bad, and that was kind of cool too. Of a scene that we obviously didn't see at that time because that character didn't exist. Um, but yeah, it was great, man. It was really really good.
and I didn't realize that that one lawyer was on Saved by the Bell, the college years. Patrick Fabian, I believe is the name
Oh,
of the actor.
really?
Yeah, he was
Was he?
Kelly Kaplowski's like love interest that Zach was always like jealous of.
Oh, really? He's great. He's really, really good in this show. Like his arc throughout that show, Kim Wexler and his character. God, why am I blanking on the name? I'm so bad with
Rhea
like names and
Seahorn.
no, that's Rhea Seahorn's character is Kim Wexler. Patrick Fabian's character is people are gonna be like, Matt, how did you watch the show? But I just blank. I blank everyone. I go, I don't even
You're
know. I
blank,
watched
man.
2 movies today, and he's done a lot of TV. A lot of TV. Howard Hamlin. How did I forget that? What a lawyer name.
That is a good name for a
Um,
lawyer.
Howard Hamlin's arc throughout the show is fantastic too, and there's the whole drug aspect as well, and you know the what's his name who played Scorpion in Spider Man.
Is it Mike?
No, I'm so bad with people's names. Everyone,
I'm
I'm
thinking of
already
the
like
actor, not the
Michael Mando. Yeah,
Mando. Yeah,
Nacho. Yeah, he played Nacho. Yeah.
and then Tony
Um,
Dalton's in that series too,
Tony
right? Because
Dalton
he
was
was in Hawkeye
incredible. He was in
recently.
seasons 4, 5, and 6. I mean, obviously, Giancarlo Esposito coming back as Gus Fring, one of the most, I feel like, iconic TV characters of recent
And
memory.
the
And then
role is kind of
Michael
typecasting too,
McKean
right?
too. Yeah,
Because
totally.
it feels like he's now just playing the villain and
Yeah,
everything.
he's just Gus Fring and
And he
everything
was
now.
at
So
FanExpo, if we want to segue.
hey, there's a good segue. Yeah, Eric and I, and then this will segue wonderfully into what we've been watching a lot of over the
God.
last, me over the last while, but we'll get to that. Eric and I did go to Fan Expo in Toronto this past weekend to kind of walk the show floor and see what the vibe was, kind of explore some of the booths, see what people were selling, check out what panels were going on. I will preface this that Eric and I were very excited for Cobra Kai being there and for the Cobra Kai panel. Unfortunately, they had to pull out at the last second. Um,
I know what you're
and
thinking,
then
and you cannot resist. And
and
I
then
know
they did not end up coming to the festival.
the
So
festival.
sorry, well, Fan Expo
Yeah,
Festival, kind of same thing. I guess I got TIFF on the mind, but we did walk the show floor. It was an interesting year for Fan Expo. So Eric, I go more often than you do. You've gone as press one other time
yeah.
to cover it for Rogers. This year was weird for me or interesting for me. It was the first kind of post. I know we're still in the pandemic, everyone, but no one's treating it like we are. So the first post pandemic, I'm using air quotes, Fan Expo, and it was rammed. Luckily on Thursday when we went, it wasn't too bad, so we were able to kind of manage the show floor pretty easily. Thursday being the lightest day, like we kind of just wanted to see what the vibe was and what was going on. So Eric and I walked around, checked out the Hasbro booth to see some Dragon Ball Z toys. Saw a bunch of stuff that they were happening there. There was a Studio Ghibli kind of 30th anniversary. Was it 30th anniversary
Yeah.
or more booth. But overall, it was an interesting, like, they had a lot of celebrities there, I would say. Um, but I'm not the guy that, especially covering it as press, where I'm like, the Cobra Kai thing was the biggest thing. They obviously had some people from Stranger Things, which they added at the last minute. And then they had movie specific stuff like the Hobbits reuniting from Lord of the Rings.
Clerks.
They had all the cast of Clerks 3, weirdly didn't do a screening or anything. So which that would have been cool for them to set up, but that didn't happen. But the celeb side of thing, like, I'm not one to go, get an autograph or a photo with people. It's just not really my thing. I get why people uh it's a big money maker for those people, and people love it, so good for them. But I love Fan Expo just because I love seeing, my people or these dorks kind of walk around and just go all out for their fandom. Like, that's kind of why I like walking the show floor, why I like looking at the booths, is like seeing the cosplayers, seeing the dad bring their young kids, or seeing the mom bring their young kids, or their nerdy parents sharing their nerddom with the young kids, and like, or just nerds walking around looking at stuff that makes them happy. Like, that's the reason I love Fan Expo. And I feel like this year was a little lacking when it came to like the booths. And Eric's, I'll get your thoughts in a sec. But there's two aspects where there's like those, the bigger booths that are the sponsored booths by usually a big company or something like that. And then you have a lot of the smaller booths, which are a lot, kind of reminds you of a flea market a little bit, where people are selling comic books, memorabilia, vintage toys, vintage video games, like posters, all this kind of stuff. And then that part, I'm like, oh, well, it just does kind of feel like a flea market. So to pay money to just pay a lot of money to just go in and look at a flea market is kind of interesting. Where I felt it was lacking a little bit was in those bigger booths. I felt like, you had that big Hasbro booth, you had the Ghibli booth, you had, this weird, like a lot of it was like a big eBay booth, which is more just selling stuff. And then
But it
another
all
one was
felt like
another,
eBay. You mentioned flea
yeah.
market, but it kind of felt like almost like the scene in Wreck-It Ralph 2, where like they're just kind of going through the digital version of eBay, where this is almost like a version of eBay for nerds specifically to prey on nostalgia. Which again, there's nothing wrong with that, because especially if you know what you're getting into, but like you're walking around and it's a lot of stuff that's kind of like either gone up in price, quote unquote, a little bit over time, but it's just kind of repurposed a lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of it was that, right? And like, you had this big buffer festival creator zone, and you had a big esports Bell esports challenge stage, and then you had what was missing is like, in the video game aspect of things, there was an Ubisoft booth that was celebrating Assassin's Creed. There was a Genshin Impact booth, which isn't really my thing. I don't really know what Genshin Impact is. And then there was this big Whatnot booth and a big eBay booth, and eBay and Whatnot are both like selling crap online. Like, and I love eBay, don't get me wrong, and I have no idea what Whatnot is, but like, those were two of your biggest booths. And then you had the big Bandai Namco booth, which had a lot of cool toys you could buy. Again, just buy stuff. Um, some of it exclusive, and different things like that. And then you had the Ghibli booth, which was also selling stuff. So um, I guess, the panels are what people go for. I just found, once the Cobra Kai people bailed out, that I didn't have a huge interest in a lot of the panels. I'm on the movie side of things for us. Like, I didn't find that there was much. Like, again, the Hobbit thing, there was a couple paid events. You had to pay more money. The Clerks thing, I think you had to pay more money for a lot of the Jay and Silent Bob stuff. So even if you had a ticket, you had to pay for that. And you have the one-on-one kind of conversations with a group of people. Like, some of the cast of The Boys were there and did a panel, which is awesome. And the cast of Things were, some of them were there, and did a panel. And shout out to Joseph Quinn and those people who are just capitalizing on their popularity right now, because that's what you should do in a moment like this. But yeah, overall, I went again on the weekend. So I went 2 out of the 4 days, and on the second day, I'm like, oh man, it is way too busy in here for me. And I got a little bit of that kind of pandemic anxiety, a little bit of like, it's too crowded in here. It's hot as hell. I'm breathing through this mask, and I just was like, I can't do this anymore. And then I bailed out. But that being said, I still do really love Fan Expo, and I feel like it is, a great event for the city and a great event for, if you are a dork like us. But like, I don't know, this year didn't have a lot for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it in any way, and if it's making people happy and nobody's getting hurt, I mean, the only thing I think I would maybe reconsider in future years is that screaming contest that they
Oh
had,
yeah.
which was a little bit unsettling to say the least. But yeah, like
For
it's
context, there was like a horror stage in the South building. So there's two buildings, South and North. The South building is mostly where the photo ops and signatures are, and some more booths you can buy crap from. But on this horror stage, they had a shrieking or screaming contest. And like, so for every couple minutes, you would hear this like blood curdling like scream, and it was very unsettling, to Eric's point, where you're like, in a big convention, like I don't necessarily want to hear a very startling scream every few minutes.
Yeah, especially if there is somebody in need of help that is screaming for help, and it's like, okay, are you supposed to believe that person's screaming for help, or is it part of a competition or something like that? And that shouldn't be the case, right? Yeah, other than that, like it kind of like the last time I was there, which I think was like 5 or 6 years ago, it kind of felt similar. Obviously it was less packed because it was the opening day, and we were there at a
Thursday
time.
is always the best day to go if
Yeah,
you can do it.
we'd had Popeyes chicken tenders
God,
beforehand. We were
bad
we
idea.
were good. You know what though? I think we burnt that off though, walking around, and it was so like it was sweltering hot in there, to the point when after we left, and you met up with Nevis, and went home, and I went to the to Union. I bought a bottle of water, and I must have chugged that thing so quickly because I was just so dehydrated with how hot it was in there.
Yeah, the
um
South building was hotter too than the North building.
yeah, and again, going into that kind of flea market sort of, aspect of it, I enjoy it. I mean, I almost bought the brain from Sunrise.
I
I'm
almost bought multiple Dragon Ball Z toys.
still tempted to buy that thing as well from Gremlins 2, the brain gremlin. But it's like one of those things where it's like, again, you know, how much how much of it is nostalgia, how much of it is like, you got to think like, okay, in your own personal case, like, are you willing to spend this much money on this thing that's probably going to collect dust and do nothing? If you're a collector, if you're somebody that has an affinity for this, that's different,
Yeah,
um
but I feel like, don't those people like find better deals?
oh,
Like they
sure,
don't
well,
go
on
to
eBay I'm sure there are
and they
better
don't
deals,
and they don't, or they go scouring,
yeah,
vintage stores
or
or
flea
this, like
markets.
flea markets, like these standalone stores that I feel like they boost up their prices a little bit when they go to these events
Definitely,
too,
it's
right?
it's like
Like,
going to a mall. Like, speaking of Sunrise, like if in the before times, in the before of the Amazon, the pre-Amazon stuff, like if you go to like a mall, like chances are like a Blu-ray or something like that, if you go to, when
it's like
HMV was around.
$35.99
Yeah,
instead of like,
and it should be 25, but the prices are expensive because the rent to have that space is so expensive per month, so they have to raise the prices of all the products or
and
the
they're not
merchandise.
ordering as much because they're not a big box store like a Walmart or an Amazon or something like that too, right?
Exactly. And then, like, again, like it's nice to see like people, the community and the enthusiasm of people
Yeah.
dressing up and stuff like that, and having a good time, and not bothering anybody, and like, I think somebody that really benefits from this in terms of like, a small business, is someone like Retro Kid, which I was really
Yeah,
happily
shout out to them.
surprised to see them there and doing well, and
I mean, it's
kind of,
perfect for them to be there.
yeah.
That makes total sense, right? And they've kind of skyrocketed in popularity over the pandemic and stuff too. And yeah, it was great seeing them there. The Layered Butter guys, we never got to go to their booth, but shout out to them. They had a booth over in the South building. Unobstructed View had a booth we checked out as well. So there were some like movie related stuff. They were just kind of on the smaller scale of things, and some of those guys we already know personally and things like that too.
Yeah.
Um, So I'm definitely, I want to see more. I want this to be Comic Con, right? Like, and I know it'll never be San Diego Comic Con, because San Diego Comic Con, it is more of a local thing, and it is more of your classic kind of Comic Con thing where it's just, okay, it's a mix of people who are very popular right now, and need to capitalize on that, and people who were popular a while ago that need to, keep making money because whatever they were in was popular, and prey on nostalgia. I don't mean that as predatory in the sense that there's anything wrong with that. They're
Unless you're
not
the predator.
they're not forcing anyone to pay
No.
$85 for an autograph or $150 for a photo. And like, I just see some of that stuff where they're just kind of like funneling people through for those photos and stuff like that. And it just feels so weirdly impersonal that, like, me and you, we've always said this. We're those guys where I'm like, I'd rather meet someone, shake their hand, or
Say you
just say
enjoy their
like,
work, or actually
or
have an
have a
interview.
conversation. Not even an
Well,
interview,
just
but a
well, I mean,
conversation.
like in
Like,
terms of like the. So we were trying to get interviews for Cobra Kai, like
yeah.
something like that, where like that would be a great experience to have, where you actually, even if it is only
And that's on the press
5 minutes.
side of things,
Yes.
though. But I even mean on the public side of things. And I know you can't, when you go get an autograph from somewhere, you usually, yes, tell the person you love their work, you get their autograph, but they do charge you for it there, at least from the bigger celebrities, in quotes. Um, Yeah, it's just, it feels weirdly impersonal, and I'm like, I don't know, like, I just rather have a conversation with someone. I don't need an autograph. I don't necessarily even need a photo, as proof to prove to everyone that I met that person. I just rather talk to them. And there were some, like, if you're into comic books, you can pretty much do that with a lot of the comic book artists. So you can kind of go to Artist Alley, which is an area, Eric, you didn't walk around in, but I went on my second go around because I'm like, oh, I'm still a pretty big comic guy. Like, the co-creator of Invincible was there, Ryan Otley, and the artist for a lot of that series. And he's just sitting at his booth. He does charge for things if you want like a sketch or a custom thing, but like, you can just go up and talk to these guys as they're sitting at their booth, guys or gals. And like, I think that's pretty cool, just being accessible, to those people who have created some of the, comic book weird. Comic books are weirdly, like, comic book movies are the biggest thing on the planet, but like, comic books are still like
And
a
comic book
niche,
artists
and
even
are a
are
niche thing. Like,
unrecognized.
yeah, so it's, this guy who is co-creator of this thing that's a big Amazon show. Maybe it's not the most popular thing in the world, but like, um Robert Kirkman created The Walking Dead and stuff like that. He wasn't there, but like, you have some pretty big names in the comic book world that are just chilling at their Artist Alley booths, and or are writers that are just chilling in that area too. And I think that's really cool. It's just when you get to the, like, paying money and lining up like you're in a, it's just a weird, I've seen those, like, videos and someone yelling, don't take any video of like a person because you didn't pay for it, right? And it's just like, that stuff feels weird, but like, I get, it's just, hey, if you want to pay for it, no one's forcing you. So it's like, go for it. And if it makes you happy, it makes you happy. And that's what I love, is just like looking around and seeing kids dressed up, and people dressed up, and having a
Getting
good time. And
tattoos
like,
and
oh, the tattoo alley is weird, but like, there's a lot of weird stuff now. And like, it used to be, video games got to be a bigger part of Fan Expo at one point, and that made me really happy. Like, PlayStation would had a huge booth where you could go play some of their upcoming games. But like, now that E3 and different things aren't really a thing anymore, like in-person events, they don't really have a lot of those demo kiosks that they have at other events. They still have PAX, which PAX take place around the US, and those are like Fan Expo specifically for video games. And you do get some of that crossover here, but you didn't get a lot of that this year. And then on the film side of things, you used to get like big booths from some of the studios, whether it's a specific project they had coming up, or DC and Marvel used to have booths, but they didn't really have anything anymore either. And like, so you get, like, it becomes this weird, like, buy stuff convention, and with eBay and whatnot, and the Bandai Namco booth still just being a place you could buy toys. It's just like, you didn't have a lot of those experience booths, right? Like, you could take a photo with Princess Mononoke, but like is like
Or Pokeroo.
or Pokeroo, which is cool, I guess. But like you go to these things, I think at least I do for these cool booths that are like these experiences or these elaborate kind of things. And maybe I'm just like envisioning Fan Expo as something else, like more like San Diego Comic-Con. But
I guess some of the panels and maybe just like the
and I guess you
Q&As are
don't
the closest to that
yeah.
now.
And then like I guess if you get to see someone you really admire or look up to or really like their work, you get to go see them talk in person, and that's a big part of it, right? And you had a lot of video game actors, a lot of TV and movie actors do panels, and like I just don't think that's like our thing. I think certain panels are my thing, but it's usually like a preview panel is my thing, right? Like I used to go to Fan Expo and see the Marvel and DC like comic book panels where they would talk about their upcoming slate of comic books. And then the sketch duels are really cool where you see comic book artists draw the same character and they kind of the audience votes on which one's their favorite. Um they used to do even like preview of they never really had movie previews. I think Warner used to do one and something like that, but it was in a smaller room and things like that. But it's obviously a blast. I'd say if you were gonna go, um depending on how many people are there that you're interested in, I think you only really need to do one day. And Thursday is probably your best bet. But like, I definitely had a good time on Thursday walking around with you. I got overwhelmed when I went back on Sunday. And, but overall, I think it's a worthwhile event that I want to see a little bit more from. And I know they're trying, but I think a
Yeah,
lot of people just are still trying to figure out that post-pandemic air quote thing, everyone, of like what conventions they want to go to, especially brands. I think the actors and stuff, sure, they don't mind going to them, but yeah.
well, I mean, some of them, maybe more so than others, depending on like what their schedule is like. Because there are like it was kind of interesting to see the Stranger Things cast, a lot of the younger actors there, because it's like, okay, well, Joseph Quinn just kind of broke out with this new
And he's
season.
been going to all of the conventions,
Yeah,
right?
and
Like,
and same thing with Grace Van Dien, who's in a TIFF movie that we'll probably end up seeing called Roost, directed by Amy Redford. So it's like, okay, well, these are actors at the beginning of their careers, where someone like Robert Englund, who's probably done 1,000 of these Comic Cons and scare
that's
fests and
his
things
job
like that.
now,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, that's his bread and butter. Which again, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously, Freddy
Why not?
Krueger
You
is an
travel around, you
iconic
sign some
character still.
autographs and take
Yeah,
some photos, you make money. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure like he would love to be working on another film or TV show or be even being at home. But yeah, you have to kind of be respectful to that as well. Um, like I think the one guy there that was kind of like the one person that I would like, to your point, like I would be more than happy to have like oh hey, nice to meet you, just casual. If you bumped into him, is Carl Weathers, because
Yeah.
to me Carl Weathers is like this legend, like starting with like the Rocky films and even having a really small extra role in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and obviously with Predator and Action Jackson, and he's just like a really,
Recently with Mandalorian.
yeah, and he's just a really great like actor, and one of those guys that is just like had probably a ton of amazing stories that would have a really wonderful panel or something like that. But yeah, other than that, it was more fun just kind of walking around. I mean, I know that Fan Expo has been doing this at the end of August, and I don't know what other time of the year you could really do this, but it does feel like that is a detriment to the festival or to the Fan Expo in a way, because there is this kind of like dead zone at that time of the year where you know Comic Con in San Diego has already passed. You've had a lot of announcements already happen. The summer movie season is coming to an end. Fall is only starting to ramp up, so you have studios and filmmakers wanting to maybe wait to announce their stuff in September or after some of the fall festival stuff. So it kind of does feel a little bit like it's not maybe the greatest time of year to have anything really all that exciting come out, especially this year, because again, like we were talking about it in the last couple of episodes, like they're getting some bubbly there. there wasn't really much theatrically released like after that first week of August. So, studios didn't really need to promote
I
anything.
feel like I haven't really been to the movies in a while, which is
You caught up on
wild to
some
say.
stuff with Bodies, and Bullet
Oh
Train
yeah,
and
yeah.
what have you. But
Oh,
yeah,
I
like
did see Bullet Train. We don't need to talk about it. It's fine.
after that first week, which goes to show you how memorable it is. But after that first week, there was just nothing going on in terms of the film side of things, and even with television, um, it's kind of just like basically like a catch up, kind of get ready for school if you're going, what have you, going back to work. It's like there's just not a lot there. And even though Fan Expo is kind of teaming up with Warner Brothers to do a special Black Adam presentation in October, which I'm sure is going to be because that's with them, right, with Warner Brothers
I
and
didn't even
Fan
see
Expo.
that. Did
So
there?
there was an announcement that The Rock is coming to Toronto in
Oh.
October
The
or
hierarchy
late
of the
September.
DC universe is about to change.
Yeah, I'm just going to double check this as we're talking just to confirm that, but
I'll find it. Yeah.
I believe that was like the big announcement that they were working with Fan Expo, so that maybe it's just something where it's like, okay, maybe we need this additional kind of push, and it's a good kind of like cross promotional thing. So
I they're probably gonna try to push the shit out of that movie.
well, because it's
But
Warner Brothers' last theatrical release of 2022, apparently, right? So with everything that's going on with Don't Worry Darling right now, it's kind of like those are the only two films that are being released by Warner Brothers in the fall calendar, which is kind of surprising. But then they're putting all their efforts into Black Adam because it's the least problematic of the two.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I guess he's coming to premiere the movie here. Um, I think we partnered with Warner Bros. To give Fan Expo fans a chance to attend
okay.
the event. So I don't know if it's necessarily exactly like partnered with them like on the entire event rather than they're just going to give away
But there is a Fan
passes to
Expo
it.
element, right? Like it was
Yeah,
just
but
like
E-Talk had the same post, I think, or yeah, they retweeted Narcity Canada. I guess like Fan Expo is giving away the tickets. I guess that makes sense, but
right.
because does Black Adam come out in November?
October, I think, or did they move it to November now? Because they keep moving
They
stuff.
did move it, didn't they? No, did they?
Okay, I'm looking this up now. I'm going to IMDb where all the reliable sources are. So
Yo, this October, The Rock flies to Toronto. So yeah, he's gonna come do a Canadian premiere here or something. Which cool.
Yeah, October 21st is when the film.
So
opens.
yeah, I'm assuming he'll come right before the release to do a red carpet or black carpet, yellow carpet, whatever the fuck, for Black
You sound
Adam.
so enthusiastic.
We're all
this
wearing
film.
black today.
Yeah.
We're all blacked out. So
Dr. Fate, man. That poster of Dr. Fate just kills me. Every time I see it, I just laugh. That character poster, it's incredible.
I don't know if I even saw it.
It's like something I even retweeted it saying it's like, what if you had this on your dorm room wall? It's so tacky, but it's kind of funny.
I haven't seen it. Black Adam character poster previews Doctor. Oh, okay. God. Sick. Moving on from that was weird.
I think Black Adam tried to interrupt this episode.
I want to move on to a little conversation, which will probably go on way too long, on Dragon Ball Z Kai. Eric, I completed 153 episodes of the original Dragon Ball series. And then you have now joined me on my journey of watching Dragon Ball Z Kai for the first time, both of our first times. However, if people aren't familiar with Dragon Ball Z Kai, it is a kind of remix or recut of the original Dragon Ball Z series. In its kind of original 4:3 form. However, it is redone in high definition. So they use the original kind of film prints of Dragon Ball Z. And then whenever they had missing frames and things like that, or they wanted to kind of change things up a little bit, they redrew or hand traced the original footage. and have some new animations in it. It has a completely new score, which we'll get into that because there's some controversy there. It has a completely new English dub. So a lot of the voice actors came back and redid their roles. They also recasted a bunch of roles. And then it's condensed the series from its 250 some episodes to 150 some episodes, or maybe even 290 episodes down to 150 some episodes.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of Goku flying to his destination
that's
that they
cut.
need to cut down.
Yeah.
We should call it the truncated cut because of Trunks.
I'm almost there. Yeah, so we're watching Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is something I've wanted to do for a long time after I heard about it. It aired from 2010 up until the mid 2010s. They took a couple year gap between the final episodes. So I have finished 54 episodes now of Dragon Ball Z Kai in basically 2 weeks time. um I'm finished the Saiyan saga and the Frieza saga. Eric, you are halfway through the Frieza saga, correct?
Yeah, I'm where
Yeah.
the end of the Ginyu Force is, and the beginning
Yeah.
of Frieza takes on Vegeta, Krillin, and Gohan as
S-
Goku heals in the what look. That's the thing where you can
So let
tell.
me preface this just so everyone, before you keep going,
Yeah,
we are going to talk about Dragon Ball Z in spoilery talk, because like at least up until the episode that I say. So I have watched up to episode 54, which is the end of the Frieza saga. You might be sensitive. I know it's a 30-year-old show. However, I forgot a lot of the series. I did watch it as a kid. Obviously, this is a new version of it. If you don't want to be spoiled, look at the time codes below or on podcast services. You can kind of skip ahead if you don't want to hear spoilery stuff on Dragon Ball Z. I know it's weird to do a spoiler warning for a very old TV show,
well, it's even for me
but
to you because I remember a lot of what
where I don't.
happens. Where yeah, like with like even where we're going, because like I
I
was
don't remember anything. I think this is basically where I ended as a kid, to be honest,
interesting.
because like I I don't remember the androids. I don't remember Cell. I don't remember Trunks, and I don't remember
Boo, Majin
Boo at
Boo,
all. Like I don't.
or Bobbity.
I remember Frieza a lot, and there were a lot of moments during the Frieza saga where I'm like, oh, I fully remember this. But I think as a kid, I probably watched that Frieza saga and then maybe got a little bit older, and then I don't know why I ended up stop watching it. Maybe I got more into video games or whatever, but there was some reason. But I am all in. So, anyways, that's the spoiler warning for Dragon Ball Z. We will talk about the first two arcs kind of in spoilery territory. But Eric, how have you felt going back? Because like I talked about my journey with Dragon Ball a lot over the last month or so, or 2 months. But since I got back from my wedding, I've watched so much Dragon Ball. How are you enjoying your revisit?
It's like hanging out with old friends again, you know. Like I remember
Even if
it.
some of them sound slightly different.
Yeah, you know what? I was a little worried going in that that would be a problem. There's only a couple characters that are drastically different, and even then it doesn't ruin it in any way whatsoever. Like the vocal performances, even though there are a few that are very memorable, it's not, you know, hit or miss. And like I was thinking, okay, like what are they going to cut out, or what are they going to feel that is like, you know, like just excess that they can kind of just, you know, leave on the cutting room floor. If you want to go back and watch the original versions, they're there, unlike, you know, like the original Star Wars movies where you have to find the VHS versions or bootleg cuts or what have you. um yeah, I like Star Wars as a kid. I obsessed over Dragon Ball when it was on YTV, to the point where like I had, you know, grandparents taping episodes when I wasn't, you know, around in the early evening when it aired. I would buy episodes. Usually they were like in 3 packs at GNU Books back in the day, and they were really expensive. Talking about like a, you know, a boutique chain raising the price on something, a VHS copy with 3 episodes of a show, especially if it was an imported show or an English dub, was like $40 for a
For
VHS. And this was,
3 episodes of
yeah,
Dragon
and
Ball.
this was in the early 2000s as well. So like it was obscene. Um, but yeah, like there's a lot of nostalgia and love for the story and the characters. Essentially, Goku is Superman, and in my opinion, a better version of Superman, a much more likable, but also more interestingly defined as a character, and not just kind of like a catch-all kind of thing when a problem comes up. Even though there are kind of uh, sort of routine kind of things that this series
Yeah.
does go through, but I think it ultimately works, and it kind of really flows well from one sort of event into another in a kind of very natural kind of way. It feels like, okay, well, one problem ends, but it also kind of sets off a chain reaction into the next saga, and it does so in a way that doesn't feel jarring or like it's stopping and starting. It feels like, okay, well, this kind of set off this, and now we're, headed to Namek after dealing with Saiyans coming to planet Earth and trying to be, the worst realtors ever. And yeah, like a lot of this show, it came at a time when my parents were divorcing in 99. So I remember, and I told you this before the show, and maybe I have even talked about it on the show or on movie night back in the day when we were recording, but there was a time when I wasn't seeing my dad, and it was basically one of those things where, like, the first time I saw him, I didn't even go over to his place for Christmas. I had to meet him at a McDonald's in Ajax across from the Applebee's, and I gave my brothers my Christmas list, and my Christmas list was all Dragon Ball Z toys, and specifically, this was around the time when the Cell Saga was
Was happening.
starting up. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so, like, my one big gift or my big toy that I wanted was the first iteration of Cell, because that was one of my favorite designs in the
I'm looking
show.
forward to it. Yeah.
Um,
No
and
future spoilers.
no, 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 no. The only spoiler is a sad story about a kid opening toys in a McDonald's 2 weeks before
Sounds, yeah.
Christmas, and as other children and parents were wondering what the hell is going on and how sad and pathetic that is. But like that memory came back to me while watching this in such a vivid way, where it was like I remembered every detail of it, and I just remember always watching Dragon Ball Z and Buffy on YTV, and like having like the host do the intro for the show, and then when buying the VHS versions of the show, always being astonished by how much more violent it was,
Yeah.
because the uncut version, like the first episode or the first VHS pack I ever.
YTV had the very kids focused edited version of Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, like for example, to the point where like Bulma's dad in the Dragon Ball Z TV broadcast on YTV, they blacked out the cigarette he always has in his mouth, and so it kind of looked like a turd hanging off of his lip, and I always wondered like what that was.
That
and then
was, and
and
when
then
you
when you
watch the VHSs, yeah.
yeah, and then you're like, oh, it's a cigarette. Okay, I didn't realize that like
Yeah.
that was something that they kind of like tried
Did
to.
you ever watch because I remember Teletoon having the uncut versions at midnight on Friday nights. That's where I first saw the uncut
There
versions.
were a few episodes, but it depended on where I was, because I was watching the show but also buying some of the VHS to kind of like get ahead, because I was like, oh, I can watch these and already be on the Frieza saga. And so like the first episode I remember buying, or the first pack that I remember buying, was when Frieza has his second transformation, because I love the devil horns, and the back
Yeah.
image was Krillin being impaled by Frieza, and for whatever sadistic reason I was like, I need to watch this right away. um but
It's
yeah,
awesome, dude.
it's
It's
amazing.
so I've had such a blast, and I'm so glad I watched Dragon Ball beforehand, and I highly suggest anyone who is enjoying Dragon Ball superhero right now, or has loved Dragon Ball Z but hasn't gone back to watch the original Dragon Ball. Like I it's such a different show, and I'm realizing that like this is very battle centric. It's very action focused, which is, I think, great. Like I love the Saiyans coming to Earth and finding more about Goku's backstory, and just like then finding more about Piccolo's backstory and Kami's backstory with the Nameks, and like I love all of that. But I got so much more from that because I watched the OG Dragon Ball, and I just love the kind of playful nature of that original series. So like very different shows, but I feel like watching that set me up perfectly to just be absolutely obsessed with this universe right now. And I do feel like a kid again, where like I really loved Goku, I really loved Dragon Ball Z as a kid. I just it kind of evaporated from my brain, unfortunately. Like I remember we were singing the theme song like Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball
Triple
Z, which I
Z.
didn't realize was only a UK and Canadian intro to the show. Some people pointed out it wasn't just Canadian, it was UK as well. And then the Teletoon versions people pointed out were more of the American kind of intro, which was more of like a metal version, like a hair metal version of it. Um, I'm loving it, man. Like I feel like it's a way better story than I remember, just because I guess I was a dumb kid and you couldn't kind of comprehend it all. And even though I think it gets masked as a kid show, you sometimes forget that like animation, yeah, I think in the 80s and 90s in North America was considered a thing for children. So a lot of these kind of animes and different things that were being kind of brought over from Japan that were not necessarily for adults, but more of like an older kid, like maybe in late teens and adults kind of thing that were kind of edited down for children. And I think the storytelling, maybe not like the most sophisticated, but I think there's more to it than I think than what's perceived. Like I really love the Goku character. I think in both Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, there's some great character building moments. It isn't just action, and I feel like Goku's history with the Saiyans and how much great world building that there is in both shows, and just from whether it's how Earth is portrayed with how the Dragon Balls work, or how even how the city that Bulma lives in with Capsule Corp and the Red Ribbon Army and like all the different factions on Earth that are vying for the Dragon Balls, or what powers people have, and then the escalation that this series, it just has a wonderful momentum to it. And I think you already brought that up, where it's just both in its pacing from one saga to another, and to how it builds its characters of always needing to train for that next thing and getting more powerful, is like, yeah, it gets a little, some people might say it's
Repetitive.
repetitive, but I also think that it just you always have to one up the last thing, right? And it is that momentum storytelling where Goku starts as this little kid that doesn't know his powers at all, and has to train and always wants to be kind of the best fighter in the universe. And I just feel like the show does such a good job of that innocence that character has, and how he's finding more about himself, and always wanting to do the right thing and never wanting to kill unless he has to, and utilizing that in really interesting ways. And I'm just like really really impressed with how much I'm kind of enjoying the show and how dark it gets at times. And I'm like, this would have, I remember Krillin dying a lot when I even when as a kid. Like I just remember that being like an ongoing kind of bit, right? Like Yamcha's a doofus and Krillin gets killed all the time. It's like those are the things that I kind of remembered.
And Master Roshi is super
Is
sexist, but at the time you
at
realize as a
least
kid
in
he's just
Dragon Ball
being
Z, it's like there's still some horrendous stuff in there, but like it's at least Dragon Ball is filled with it. Dragon Ball Z, there's only a few instances. Um, but I think Toyama is the creator's name, right? And I think he's done such a great job with that universe and like in these characters. And I feel like each character gets their moment, and even introducing new characters like Vegeta, and like the face turns and the heel turns, and then someone is like not a face but not quite a heel. Like Piccolo started like that, but then you love Piccolo's relationship with Gohan, and then like you see
he's the dad that
Piccolo.
stepped up while Goku was away
Yeah,
training with Kai.
exactly. And I love that shit. And even Vegeta, like you see moments in there. I'm like, you motherfucker, you just want to be the most powerful being. You want to beat Goku so bad because you're jealous of this bastard, but you still kind of care because he's a Saiyan and his son is a Saiyan too. And you really like when he saves Gohan and Krillin multiple times. He didn't have to. And I'm like, they're building that character up really, really well. And like the voice acting, I think in this Kai version, while some characters it was jarring after watching so much Dragon Ball, like Bulma and even Gohan, because I do remember the original Gohan voice, and because it was the same voice as Goku from Dragon Ball, like that was etched in my brain. I do like that change though, because I feel like it differentiates that character more than just being a clone of Goku, even though that's what that character is for the most part. I don't even know in stories. Anyways, we'll get there. But and then Bulma and I guess is the big one that I think the voice is changing, Frieza as well. But like
Yeah.
a lot of the reading I've done is like a lot of the voice actors when they first did Dragon Ball Z, they were like pretty green in the industry, so they're all like really wanted to come back and redo this, and like, and I guess the translation is much better in Kai than it was in the original Dragon Ball Z. So I'm having no issues with it being condensed down or anything. Like I'm not really noticing, like the pacing is relentless, that you don't get a lot of time to breathe, I guess. When it comes to in between moments and stuff like that, it is pretty battle focused, and it is pretty whatever is relevant to the story, where I guess the original series had a lot of side quests or random things that people would do that didn't necessarily move the story forward. So, and I know some people probably really love that stuff, and probably miss it if they watch this version, where I don't remember any of it, so I'm kind of enjoying that. I'm really liking the score, even though the dude that did the score um got caught plagiarizing basically everything he's done for Toei since he got hired there. So the version Eric and I are watching is the original version with the plagiarized music. So that I'm enjoying it sucks that he stole all that music, and no one should ever do that. Like he stole
But a lot of
if
people do, though, especially when it comes to composers, where like a lot of them, like it's always that question of like what's a tribute and what's plagiarism,
yeah,
right? Like what constitutes as each thing. But like again, if you're just basically copying and pasting
a lot
or
of it sounded very very similar.
yeah.
So that's unfortunate. And I feel like it really works in this, and I like the themes that they're playing with. I like how it feels more like a modern show, and I feel like some people that would maybe be a put off too, because like the original does very much feel like something that was from the 80s, right, with its sound and its sound effects and its music, where this makes Dragon Ball Z feel a little bit more modern with the music that they use and things like that. Another thing, Eric and I, the theme song has grown on me a little bit, but like I still don't love it. I do love that original, that original Canadian version just rocks, where this is a little like underwhelming. But man, I'm all in, dude. Like the Frieza saga, I will say I felt like even in its condensed form went on maybe a little longer than I would like. Like it does by the end of it, you go, okay, he's got a fourth transformation, and you're like, okay, now he's gonna fight Super Saiyan Goku, and it's gonna go on for a couple episodes, and you're like, it is that escalation of always needing to power up and be stronger. And I love, like, there's some tropes both in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z that are just really funny, where it's like characters will always go, oh, you thought I was at full power? I was only at half power. And you're
I
like,
was
why?
suppressing
What?
my power.
Yeah, like
Ah!
it's like you'll go 3 episodes of a fight, and then they're just like, I was actually suppressing my power. And you're
Now I'll
like,
show you the full extent of my power.
and it's just like, and that happens over and over again, just a way to kind of like up the ante or continue the fight. And that happened way back in the tournaments in Dragon Ball as well. Like Goku would even be like, I was only using half power, or whoever, Piccolo, who he's fighting, or whoever, was just like, and there'd be no reason for the person to use only half power. Because like,
Right.
I'm like, if Frieza could just Hulk out like that and just fucking murder everyone, why wouldn't he do that right away? So there's like
Well, he's
certain
lazy, man. He doesn't want to have to use all that power on people that he believes are lesser
are
than
under
him,
him.
right?
Yeah, I agree with
Like
that.
that's
And I
that's why
think,
he's in that first transformation
yeah,
and never in his final form.
and no one's ever seen him like that. And I
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. But then you kind of go, I go back and forth on it, where it's just like, okay, well, now it's maybe going on a little longer than it probably needed to. I know the Frieza saga, I think, is the longest one of. I think maybe the Majin Buu stuff at the very end is almost as long, but
Yeah. Well,
um,
it's also like you. I think that like it's also quite long at the end of the Vegeta Nappa stuff. Like once Nappa has been killed off, and it's Goku and Vegeta fighting. A lot of that goes on for what seems like a lot longer than it actually is, even in the condensed version. But when you get to Namek, it's a lot of Frieza's got the Dragon Balls. Now Vegeta
yeah,
has the Dragon Balls.
Dende's there,
Now we got to
and
bring in Dende and
Nail.
Nails and the Grand Elder okay, now we got to get to the Dragon Balls before the Ginyu Force get here.
I
So
love
it's
the Ginyu Force.
oh, like they're
It's great.
amazing. That is one of like I remember kind of feeling like as a kid that they were a little too much, that they were
Yeah,
kind of ridiculous. But
and they
now
are, but
going back, oh,
I
but they're
love it.
it's that, and I actually like that Captain Ginyu doesn't completely push aside Goku. Like he actually sees him as a worthy threat.
Well,
Like there's something
that's a
there that's
continuing,
interesting.
and that's a continuing kind of motif throughout the series, right? Like, and that's something that I love is like eventually people don't take. I mean, starting they don't take Goku seriously, but when they realize his power, even the villains a lot of the
Kakarot.
times, yeah. Oh God, Vegeta saying Kakarot is so great.
Kakarot.
Um, um they respect him at a certain point, and that's something I love from the villains in this series and the competitors at the world tournament from before and stuff like that. Like in this universe is like it's like Cobra Kai where like karate is everything, where like martial arts is everything, like fighting is everything, your power level is everything. So like when you
It's
have
over
a
9,000.
yeah, God, it's so good. When you have a worthy opponent, the other person respects you, right? Like even Frieza towards the end is just like no one has ever seen me in this form, and you almost like even though he's a shitbag that will just like try to trick you and kill you at any moment, like he'll lie and cheat and steal like Eddie Guerrero, but like is like. I love that in this universe that like, it's like, okay, respect. And they'll just like, you know what, you beat me. Like that's why Piccolo ends up kind of being a good guy. And you always see the people in the background being like, I got to train harder to beat fucking Goku now. And you're like, yeah, you do, Vegeta. You got to fly away and train to be stronger.
Yeah,
Kakarot.
Kakarot. I the other thing I kind of forgot about was how, like, I mean, you mentioned, Vegeta kind of becomes a reluctant ally at points, but he's still kind of merciless. Like that
Oh,
one
yeah. When he
sequence where he
murders
murders all the
everyone.
Namekians in the village for that one Dragon Ball, he's still in it for himself.
And
And
he
like to the
brings that
point,
up and rubs it in their faces when they all come back.
yeah.
And they're like, why didn't Dende's like, why didn't everyone come back? And Vegeta's like, ha, you didn't realize not everyone was killed by Frieza. And you're like, damn, dude, like you're just chilling with them at Bulma's house. I'm like, you
Yeah.
don't have to like tell them you murdered
It was
a bunch
me.
of
I
I'm like,
got them all. But yeah, it's
God
like
damn, dude.
that stuff, like, again, Vegeta becomes more softer as the series goes on. Not in like he's still like a cold-blooded killer at times, but
But
there but
sorry,
his
inserting there, I love that juxtaposition between him and Goku, right? Like he does what
right.
Goku won't do, and I love that.
But I also find that his obsession with besting Goku to be a little bit strange, because this is only coming from a sense of that I love Vegeta. Vegeta and Piccolo are my two favorite characters. But going back to it, it's funny because Vegeta basically handed Goku his ass on Earth, for the most
Completely
part.
wrecked him.
Yeah, and it's like I never, like, I always thought that obsession came from a place of that, Goku beat Vegeta, and now Goku wants that rematch to show that he can beat Goku. But it really comes down to Goku became a Super Saiyan before
Yeah,
Vegeta, and it's
exactly.
a place of, being an heir to the throne of planet,
Because Vegeta was Prince, right?
yeah, of the Saiyan planet and the Saiyan race, and being the son of a king, and also Frieza being afraid of a Super Saiyan defeating him, was all that kind of like added pressure to be the first to do it, and having this kind of what Vegeta would consider a commoner, best him at that, and what have you. It's like I get that, but it was always interesting because it's like, well, you kind of prove that could go toe to toe with Goku. Like, why do you need to do that again? And that's like his like singular like focus. Like, even when he kind of becomes more of an ally, moving forward, it's always like, I still gotta have that fight with Kakarot.
Well,
I gotta kill him.
even though he beat him when Goku didn't have his full power.
Yeah.
So I get that. I get that, man.
Yeah.
Vegeta's great. Yeah, the Namekians coming down and like that whole plot. Like, I like that they went to Namek and it wasn't just all on Earth. And
Weighted clothing. Love that they train with
I
weighted
love
clothing.
that, dude. I love that. That's always a reveal, being like, he was wearing weighted clothing, so now his power's even stronger.
Or King Kai's like, put it back on.
Yeah, King Kai's great too. Just
and
giving
Bubbles and Gregory.
Yeah, Bubbles and Gregory, great names. Everyone named after food and stuff is funny too. But King Kai being kind of the voice, like he's giving exposition, I think is funny. Like, he just keeps coming back and
he sounds like he's drinking as he's doing it, like not like alcohol or like he's drunk,
like,
but it sounds almost like he's blowing bubbles or
oh
something.
my god!
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually do that, like that he's like this bad comedian kind of type,
Yeah.
and I think one of the best jokes that he has isn't even a joke, but when he gives Goku the new uniform and gives him the emblem on his shirt, and Goku's like, oh, I thought you were like, thank you for this, I really love it, I was nervous that you were going to give me that ridiculous outfit that you're wearing, and King Kai's just like, you're welcome. Like, just like he's not impressed, and yeah, and King Kai like could
There's
be
so
a little
many characters
too
in
much,
yeah,
but he works really really well, and
he does, and that's my point, is like they introduce
he's Yoda basically.
So many characters, but I feel like everyone kind of gets their due, right? Like, even Krillin,
Well,
like
Launch maybe not so much, which
sure,
if you there's an article about that with the creators, that they just forgot about Launch after Dragon Ball, and they just didn't really even write her in. There's one
even Launch
scene
in Dragon Ball, like,
yeah,
it wasn't, she was utilized. I liked her every time she sneezed. She became the other version. Like, it was kind of random, but
there are characters in Dragon Ball that make it to Dragon Ball Z that also kind of get phased out a little bit more as
Oolong
the series progresses.
That cat thing, that's Yamcha's friend. I forget.
I hate that thing. I love Corrin. I think Corrin is great.
Oh yeah, Corrin came back a little bit at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, right? Because they go.
Because they always need the sensu beans, right? Like, that's like his thing, is that he's growing the sensu beans and Yajirobe's kind of like, he's like it's like,
Yajirobe too, yeah.
Corrin's the drug dealer, Yajirobe's like the guy who's selling it on the street corner, and yeah, but even like Yamcha and Tien and Chaozu and like
Poir.
It feels
Poir is the cat.
Oh god. It just feels like a lot of that stuff, even Master Roshi kind of
Roshi's barely in it.
Yeah.
And like Yamcha and Tien are just in they're dead the whole time, basically, right?
Yamcha's such a chump. But the thing I love about Goku again is how like he always seems genuinely interested in things. Like when he meets King Yama for the first time and starts talking to him, and it's Kami that kind of gets the backlash of King Yama after they've had that conversation where Yama is like actually interested in like Goku being interested in him, and like he's kind of showing off to Goku in a way that's kind of fun when Goku's about to sort of take that trip down the Dragon Alley and kind of like go on his quest to be taught by King Kai. And yeah, there's just a lot of really fun kind of action sequences, and like you remember like certain scenes or setups, like the build up to Nappa and Vegeta arriving, to Nappa and Vegeta kind of fighting the characters, and sort of how brutal that is just with Nappa himself. And like his death is hilarious every time. Not that he becomes paralyzed, but when Vegeta kills him and like he does that weird like face when he blows up. It's like, I always love that as a kid. And I mean, it's again weirdly sadistic, but like when Kui gets killed and like Vegeta punches him and he kind of like explodes in that weird way. But again, it is super violent. It is hyper stylized. You're either in or out on the kind of like flying and transforming. And we talked a little bit about with Cobra Kai, like it kind of feels like there is some inspiration there, where like every season it's like you have to kind of like basically best somebody by training even harder or
Yeah.
doing something more, or just training in negative 200 gravity
Those are
and
the guys I want to do the Dragon Ball movie if they
yeah.
ever do a live action or series again. Like maybe when they're done Cobra Kai is just
But it
move
kind
to
of, I guess, would be similar. Maybe that would be the one thing
maybe
that would
too
turn them
similar.
off.
Yeah.
And I
I
don't know
mean,
if they
but
have
if
a
you could do
passion for it though either, right? Like it seems
yeah.
like Karate Kid in the Karate Kid
If they
universe,
did,
they
I would
do.
love that because it does seem like they do take a little bit of inspiration from Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, and they wanted to stay within martial arts, but martial arts with superpowers is like they absolutely
Absolutely.
should get the reins to Dragon Ball if they were ever going to do
Because they're doing the
like a
Ferris
live
Bueller
action.
spinoff, I think, next, or they're working on that as a
Yes,
movie.
yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see like how that works with the continuity. And I
Because it's
really,
about the guys who take the car out
yeah,
or
Cameron's
whatever.
car while Ferris Bueller and Cameron go to like are out on the town, right? Like so I really hope that they don't bring like Matthew Broderick back and like
De-aged.
de-age him because like I feel
I
that
don't
could
know,
be a
man.
thing.
I feel like, or they'll just, I mean, they've done a good job with Cobra Kai of using archival footage and stuff like that, like, and splicing it together. Like, if they can kind of match the look of Ferris Bueller with this movie and then, like, um, and kind of make it
Over the
look like
shoulder
it,
shots where it's just like literally the back of their
I'm
heads the
not,
whole time.
I'm fine with, I'd rather that than de aging, wouldn't you? But, like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like Dragon Ball Z is one of those shows where it's like returning to it, it never felt like a chore, and it was so addictive watching that when I've only had a couple sittings with it, but in each sitting I got around like I think like 16 episodes finished in like one go, and
yeah.
it was like I need to literally like force myself to do other things, or go to bed or do something else. It's so easy to watch, and the action is still incredible and very cinematic, but also clever in how it constructs the choreography. I think there are moments that, like, we were talking about, like, death doesn't really mean anything in the same way that, like, death doesn't mean anything for a lot of superhero movies, but there are moments that kind of catch you off guard. Like,
Oh, totally.
I think when Frieza kills Dende, I was kind of like, Frieza had already been set up as a cold-blooded monster, but when he
He
just
already killed Vegeta at that point, right? No, that was before he
I
killed
think
Vegeta.
that was before, because
Yeah.
Frieza kills Dende because Dende has healing
But
powers.
even how he kills Vegeta is pretty brutal too.
Oh yeah, but at the like when he does kill Dende though, it's like holy shit! Like Frieza will kill a
Just
child. He does not care
Oh, completely
whatsoever.
murks that dude, man. Like,
Yeah,
and then when he kills Krillin, I think was like when I was like, oh god damn, I forgot he fucking made Krillin explode. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh my god. Like, and it comes out of nowhere too, where Frieza's like, enough of this bullshit, and basically like makes Krillin explode. And I'm like, oh my god. And then that's when he kills Krillin and Vegeta, or I feel like
So he kills
um,
Dende, Vegeta, and then
and then
Goku gets there, and then
and
Goku
then
and Frieza fight for a while,
and
and
then he
then yeah,
kills Krillin
Krillin.
and Piccolo, right? Or he shoots Piccolo but
He
doesn't
shoots
kill him.
Piccolo. Piccolo's still alive because I think partly why Piccolo survived that encounter is because he fused with nails, which is also something that's really important to keep in mind.
Yeah. I
It's
know about the fusion dance and stuff like that.
well, this isn't the fusion dance though, because
I know, but just
when
fusing
Namekians,
characters, like
yeah, when Namekians do it, it's like
it's different. Yeah, I
it's
understand.
permanent. It's almost
Yeah.
like you become a different person.
Yeah. Um, but I know characters confuse and stuff like that, and I know the Android Saga is coming up, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, man, I've had a blast. Even that first Saiyan saga, like kicking it off and finding more about Goku's people and stuff like that. Like there's a new intro to this version of the show where they give kind of more backstory about the Saiyans and things like that. But
Which is amazing when
mhm.
Master Roshi talks about that story, and then at the end of it, and it's like Goku's like, "And that child was me," and it's like, "Of course it was you. It was your grandfather that found
Goku's
you."
always been
Like,
a little, he's just an
oh, I love
innocent.
it. I think
Yeah,
it's funny though.
yeah. No,
Like it
it's
also
great,
is a
man.
genuinely funny show at times. Like there are moments that are, I don't want to say necessarily lighthearted, but like beyond the sexist humor, but there are things that are like the slapstick works. I think that there are kind of goofy side kind of quests that kind of work as well. I like the idea of just, Bulma trying to make the best of
Oh God.
being on
Bulma
Namek.
just being there the whole time is like I get that you need that, maybe like a kind of a human character.
Yeah.
Because
Well, also
I
with
know
what goes
Krillin
on
is
with her with I feel like part of her arc there is the stuff with the Ginyu frog,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
which would have been better if Goku had switched bodies with the frog, because then you could call him Kroku. So um
And that we will wrap the show, everyone. We will be talking about more Dragon Ball in the future. Probably not for a little whiles because TIFF is coming up. Will I watch more Dragon Ball? I've said I'm taking a break until after TIFF. I finished the Frieza saga. It's a nice point to pause. I have other things to do, other movies to watch, video games to play. Part of me wants to keep watching. So it's a good bedtime show, Eric. Like,
yeah.
when I'm done everything at the end of the day, it's like 18 minutes in and out because you can just skip over the credits and the end credits and the next on Dragon Ball Z, all that stuff.
Next time on
On
Dragon
Dragon
Ball
Ball Z
Z.
Kai. Um, I skip all that stuff usually. So I just forward, you go to that 1 minute 40 mark and you pretty much hit like when the title screen comes on. And then you can skip the end credits and you're like 18 minutes in and out in an episode. So like when I finally lie down in bed at the end of the day, like I can't just like close my eyes and go to sleep. So I'm like, what better thing to watch than 7 episodes of Dragon Ball, and then I stay up till 2 in the morning. So it's like,
The next day you're still up and it's like, yep,
yeah,
making good use of that time. Who needs sleep?
yeah, exactly. Um, but the schedule will look a little different over the next couple weeks. You should be getting a TIFF preview show next week, right before the festival. Um, where Eric and I will talk about, maybe some of the films that we pre-screen that we're allowed to talk about. We'll talk about, our most anticipated films of the festival, what our schedules are looking like, all that kind of stuff. We'll just do a big preview of TIFF on this show next week. And then we'll take a break from this show for at least 2 weeks as we focus over on Untitled movie reviews on all of our TIFF reviews. So we will bookend this episode talking about our plans, but we'll have reviews going up constantly throughout, September 8th to the 18th, and even that week leading up to the 8th of TIFF. And we should have 30 40 reviews.
God.
Like those should be spread out over 2-3 weeks, some even coming after the festival, obviously. But um you know make sure you're subscribed over on podcast services at Untitled Movie Reviews or on YouTube at Untitled Movie Podcasts. We are going to be doing audio only versions. We will put those up on YouTube for people who just like to use that and play those in the background and things like that. But we'll be running and gunning, just recording reviews in Tim Hortons or a lobby of a building or
Popeyes.
a Popeyes or a gelato patio where Eric fell asleep last year. And like it's gonna be fun. And I like the kind of run and gun, kind of record on the go kind of thing. So I'm really excited. So Untitled Movie Reviews is where you're gonna find all of that stuff. If you want a one-stop shop for everything, head over to Letterboxd, which is Untitled_movies. I will try to keep that updated during the festival. We'll try to post about all of these things. There might be kind of a maybe one post at the end of the day with all the reviews. I don't know. We still got to figure all that stuff out because it's going to be social media posts we can kind of run and gun while we're waiting for movies to start and things like that. I don't know. It's going to be wild, but it's going to, we will figure it out as we go. So we're dipping our toes in. FanExpo dipped our toes in. It was a big public event. We started screening movies this week, dipped our toes in. So I'm hoping we kind of ease our way back into this, even though I know we're not going to be easing our way back into it. We'll just Canon Dragon Ball into the
To
into
quote
the deep end.
Carl Weathers in Happy Gilmore, it's all in the hips. It's all in the hips.
Yeah, sure. All right, everyone. As always, my name's Matt Rohrbeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, mostly at untitledmoviepodcast.com. But you can also catch my work on season 4 of Family Feud Canada, which will start to air on September the 12th, 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m., maybe 7:30 on CBC in Canada, or CBC Gem. So make sure you guys check that out. And if you go, ooh, this is a good question, they don't display the question. Send me a video of the question and say, this was a good question, and I'll take credit for it, whether I wrote it or not. So
You'll never know.
Kakarot. Eric, go ahead.
Oh no, there's one other thing
Oh.
you got to mention. You had a podcast appearance not too long ago on Comic Boys.
I did. I went on Comic Boys. You guys can go check that out on their YouTube channel. I'm going to pull that up right now. Thank you for plugging that, Eric. You guys can follow me on all those social medias at, I was gonna say EM6 211.
Hey, that's my line.
But it's at Matt Rorabeck. I just want to make sure,
because you were part of the Canadian bonus episode where you talked about the show and film criticism as a whole, and just your interest in movie going and how it's changed over the years and where it began and where it is now.
Yes, so I joined Khalil Jamal over on Comic Boys. You guys can check that out on their YouTube channel, which is Comic Boys, or I believe on podcast services as well. So go check that out. It was a fun conversation. Talked about film criticism, what my thoughts are on Jurassic World and the Jurassic franchise, and a lot of other random shit. I don't even know what I said. You know when you like black out and you're just like, I have no idea what I even talked about. But I had a good time. Good kid. So that was fun.
Yeah, it was a good episode, and if you want a truncated version of our show, go and listen to that episode because it's a breezy hour 12 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
So,
and that was, I think, long for him.
Yeah, but it is a very good
We're
episode.
also on
and it was
Dave
fun.
Voigt's podcast soon. I don't know when that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, we'll keep you posted.
Busy boys,
busy boys in a busy time. I'm Eric Martin. You can find more of my video reviews, including George Miller's latest, 3,000 Years of Longing.
Is it better
Rogers...
than Mad Max Fury Road?
No. So that is available on rogerstv.com/cinemascene, and I can be found on all the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
Mondo cool.